Well, hey everybody, and welcome to this midweek review with Mr. John. Hey, what did you think of my bubble? Great sound effects too. What do you think about that though? I love the monster roar at the end, but for bubble blowing, I would say that was kind of lame. It really didn't. I was expecting, I had two pieces of double bubble in the mouth, and I thought the bubble would get to be this big and bust gum and get it all into my ear hair and stuff. But no, that didn't quite happen. It grew to this big. But have you ever noticed when we kind of carry an ego or aren't humble, we can sit there and think more of ourselves, think more highly of ourselves than we probably should. And it's like that bubble. We keep pumping into our own ego, and it just keeps blowing up and getting ever bigger to a point that the bubble can't stand no more, and it bursts, and it kind of goes all over it onto you, and it kind of backfires. You're peeling gum out of your hair, and oh, it's just awful. Getting the peanut butter treatment. You know how to get gum out of your hair. It's gross. But I'm here to talk about a judge. This judge was kind of different than the other judges. The other judges came in and maybe they had qualities that kind of showed that they weren't the ones that they would pick. Like we talked about Deborah a couple weeks ago, who was a female, and they really didn't take to female leadership. And then last week we talked about Gideon, who was the weakest of the weakest clan. Well, this week we're going to talk about a dude that in all aspects, when you looked at the guy, he was a leader. This guy's name was Samson. He was born into the Nazarite clan, and which meant when he was born that he was not to have a razor put to his head ever. But God did something special with Samson. He put his strength in his hair. Now, at the time, the Israelites were being kind of dominated by this group called the Philistines. The Philistines had kind of taken over. And as we've talked about in the past with the judges, the Israelites kind of would go through this high point where they were following God and they were just on a path, really loving God. And then as things were getting really good for them, they kind of just turned their back to God and started to fall away, and they kept falling away to a point where God kind of just backed off and things kind of would go bad for them, and then they would cry out to God for somebody to come and help them. And that's the point they're in. The Philistines are just dominating the Israelites, and they're crying out to God, hey, God, send us somebody to help us out through this. So God sends Samson. So Samson kind of does things to show off his abilities in what we would kind of say not in such a good way. Maybe we would call it like almost showing off, to say the least. Well, Samson keeps going along, and he's showing off his special abilities and strength and how he can do things, and he ends up meeting a gal named Delilah who backed the Philistines. She was part of the Philistine people, and he fell in love with her. Well, the Philistines kept going to Delilah and saying, hey, Delilah, you gotta give us the how he is so strong. What makes him so strong? Is he eating like spinach, like Popeye? What is it? We gotta take it away. So Delilah kept going to Samson and saying, hey, what is the secret to your strength? And Samson would not tell her the truth, would not give her the reason, good or bad. He would not tell her the truth about where his strength come from. Till finally one time, after 3 times, he kind of lied to her and told her that where his strength came from, and it wasn't that the source. The Philistines would try to do so. He would say that it was this reason that I had my strength, and they would attack that, and it wasn't. And Samson would destroy the Philistines that would be there at that time. Well, Delilah, after the 3rd time of being lied to, she kind of sits there and says, hey, Samson, what is the reason? I got to know. What is it? So Samson gives it up. He says that my strength, it lies in my hair. If I'm not supposed to cut my hair, God said if I don't cut my hair, I'll have great strength. So the Philistines one night come in while he's sleeping and they shave his head. And sure enough, it takes all his strength away. So Samson gets blinded. They take out his eyes. And I think at that moment, when they took out his eyes, Samson's eyes, the Philistines kind of thought that they had won, that it was over. And so they kept Samson locked up until they were going to do this kind of public humiliation, execution type thing with Samson. So they've kept him locked up, and in the meantime, his hair is growing. So they bring him out. His hair's fully grown. Now he is blinded. They strap him up. They chain him in between two pillars of this temple, this shrine, this big building that the Philistines worshiped in. And all the Philistines came in to check out Samson in his weakness. In that moment, Samson's humility, kind of his bubble burst, and he realized that his ego had gotten him, it built up so big that it finally burst, that he was in the situation that he is. And in that moment, he humbled himself to God and asked God for help to give him strength in that moment. And as he's chained to these two pillars, Samson's strength comes to him, and he just kind of pulls down the entire building. All the concrete and all the pillars and the ceiling and the walls and the roof, he just yanks it and pulls it down onto himself and all the Philistines that were there, killing everybody in there. Now that sounds horrible, but it took him being blinded, him being his hair getting cut, and in his weakest state, for him to realize that God was using him for a purpose. God gave him his strength for a purpose. And he also took it away for a purpose. God probably realized that, hey, your ego, you're showing off and all that is not working well here. And you need to kind of take a second look. You need to step back and realize that you are not being a true follower of God. And it took him being blinded for him to see who God really was. So guys, I hope the story of Samson kind of, we feel good when we play sports or we do something well, and our grandparents and our parents and all our friends give us praise. But guys, if we sit there and think that we are better than anybody else, it's kind of like that bubble. It'll keep blowing up and you'll keep thinking you're better till eventually your bubble will burst. So guys, hey, my bubble may not have been so big, but hey, that might have been a good thing. My bubble wasn't so big so it wouldn't burst all over in my face. And hopefully I keep my humility about me. Hey, have a great week. Verse is coming up. Hey, memorize this verse, learn it, live it, talk about it to your friends. We'll see you next time. Bye.
The memory verse for this month says, "He has shown you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and love mercy and walk humbly with God." Micah 6:8.